Hey dude, how's it going? Thanks for sending in your new version here. Let's take a look. Nice. I think it's feeling much better. So let's dive into the notes we got here, huh? All right. I'll clamp off the section. Let's turn on visibility. Let's turn on tracing paper. Cool. So there is something about this actually looking at again. I feel like it's already going really fast here. So we want the dragging wings. And then when we slow down at the top for the hang time, that's when we widen them. Right, so they widen during the hang time because we slow them down slightly, and then we compress again on the down, which you're doing. Right. So this is compressed in because we're going super fast, opened up for the hang time, tucked back in to go super fast again. Right. Cool. So there's if I track. The bigger note on this frame is if I track like the chest here, here, and then here, or just the general energy, we kind of have a pop on this frame. So we go here, here, and here. Honestly, I think what you need to do is delete this frame on everything. And then on this frame before, just blend this a bit closer to here so that we cover that gap. Because right now, if you look at like you just look at the spine, kind of have like a big energy change, like a shape change on this one frame. And I feel like we can do that a frame sooner, so a little bit during this, and then cut this frame, and we'll have a big impact hitting that impact with the big creature. Right now it's just hitting a tiny bit too slow. Awesome. The other notes on this section were just about overlap. I think this section is actually working really well. So I've done some drawings. You'll see. It's kind of the wave principle. So what happens is we're leading. If I draw over here, I'll do the wing, for example. So we're leading. This top end is dragging whilst the bottom is leading, right? So we get like an S shape. And then over a few frames, it becomes a C shape, right? But then the top starts to take over again whilst the bottom is still coming down. So that becomes an S shape the other way, right? And then eventually it would come up into a C, and then because the top end is always leading, right? This is like the connecting point, so that's always leading. So that's what I'm trying to mimic. Even though there's like all these different parts, I'm trying to mimic an overall S shape unraveling into a C shape. So you get this like bounce of like boom with like overlap, nice wavy overlap to the wing, because the wing is going to be, you know, a bit lighter and a bit made up of stuff, whilst the general mass is going to be heavier, and the wing is going to be a lighter thing that can just go boom, boom, boom after the hit, boom, 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 you know. The tail can be a bit heavier, and we can do a similar thing where maybe we can see it for a few frames in here, slam down with the, you know, the base leading. So we get this part leading as this part is dragging behind. And then, you know, we can reverse it and get a bit of a bounce on there. And then it can drag her along the floor and then flick over, you know, as you've got. So that's what most of the drawings for this section was, because I think this section is working really well. So let's quickly look at the next sort of bit. So for me right now, your wings come up, and then they kind of, the screen left one kind of extends out, but the screen right one doesn't really during this push forward. And I think it's really nice that the screen left one does that. So I'd love if you dropped this wing, so when you get into this pose, this wing doesn't have to come up as far. It could come up to like here, you know. So you just take this key and put it on the end of the movement. So I think if you delay that a little bit, then you're going to have more contrast. So when you push forward, those wings go back, right? So, right? Get like a really nice push forward with those wings coming back, and you get a contrast in action, right? I think that's going to be really, really nice. Cool, yeah, and that's the main stuff for this section. It's just lots of some more polishy stuff. I'm sure we could pick apart more polishy things. You just got to sort of start tracking individual body parts, really. Like if you wanted to make this clearer, maybe you could have this paw, this claw here, right? on this side of the body behind the head, and then it could maybe slam down a frame, maybe the elbow would hit, and then that would drag for a second, and then it could overlap over the top, right, where the claw starts to drag over. So it's just really tracking. So you see that kind of fun, boom, and then that could continue that momentum over until it lands, you know, where it's landing over here. So you get that like flopping, all these like lighter parts overlapping as the heavier, weightier parts, which is, you know, the center of mass, which is the chest and the hips and the head and neck. Those are the heavier parts. But then the lighter stuff can be a bit faster and a bit more overlappy, whereas those things are a bit more slumberous and take longer to change direction, right? The general rule with animation is that the heavier a thing is, the longer it takes to change direction, right? That's how you can kind of sell weight to things. Awesome. So lots of fun overlappy bits that you can layer in, and it's just going to make that feel super fleshy and nice, right? There's a little bit maybe could be pushed with, I just want to feel like maybe the head can hit here, right? You've got the head hitting here. Let's go a different color. Let's go yellow. So the head's hitting here and the chest comes down, down. Maybe as the chest comes down, the head goes up slightly, right? So the chest comes down, the head goes up. And then as the chest bounces up here, you can drag the neck and head so that they overlap down, right? I think that's going to give it like a nice boom, boom. So we're breaking up. You've done a good job breaking up the chest and the hips. Now we're trying to find ways to break up the chest and the head. So there's a little bit of, I don't want it to feel too disconnected, but it's like a nice bit of boom, boom, right? So boom, boom, right? Two parts. And I think this will give it a nice fleshy feel to it. It's not currently lacking a little bit in there. Awesome. So you've said you added some camera shaking here. It really didn't bother me at all. I think it works well. Awesome. So now let's talk about this stuff at the end. So I think it's good improvement. I think there's a few things you can do. And the first thing is I think you're in creep mode a little bit too soon. The energy kind of gets a bit stagnant because of it. I think when we first reveal the character, we can do kind of like a quicker boom boom and then go slow. So it's like a hop down. And you actually see that in your reference that you're using. The very first thing we see when we cut to this is like a faster. So we could cut to like this, literally this, like extended pose, like little step, you know, like, and then we get into creep mode. So I think this reference is great. I think you just use all of it, like obviously flip it, but like starting with that initial and then the slow creeping, right? So we got like the energy of it coming down and then we go into the slow creeping. I think that would be, give it variation in the timing and it'd be really nice. Cool. And then the main things on the walk, I've got a few notes for the ending. The main things on the walking stuff is like, I'm not really feeling with a heavy creature, you need like up, the step goes, and when the step goes, the weight crashes down onto it, and then the step goes and the weight crashes down, boom, you know, and I'm not really feeling those heavy downs. So you have the contact, there's a contact here, right? Contact. And then a few frames later, you have like a big down, right? Boom. And then here, contact. And then a few frames later, you have a down. You have a down here, but it's just not sharp enough. So it's like contact, boom, contact, boom, contact, boom, right? I want to feel that in the chest. Contact, boom, boom, right? I'm not really feeling those contacts and those steps. Sorry, the downs after the contacts is what I'm not feeling. And it's the sharpness to it, and it's the weight shift onto the other leg after each one. Hopefully me acting like an idiot makes sense for that. Cool. The other thing is, I think the framing of this, you're limiting yourself by having the egg here. If you cheat the egg, so when it's off screen, you just translate it over. And honestly, it could be even further over. Then we can have like a clear silhouette where we have negative space between the creature and the egg. And the other thing it helps with is we can see a little bit, right now you're not really seeing much of the neck because of the head. The skull is like blocking the neck, right? So let's say the skull is here. It's like this triceratops type head. Whereas if you go more side on, then we'll see, you know, behind it, and we'll see that neck and we'll see that flow. So we have a nice flow through the body with the tail all the way through the spine, all the way to the head, right? Get a really nice flow. So being a bit more side on by cheating the egg over so it doesn't have to look here, it can look further over, is really going to help with that. And then the other thing is trying to get a flow for the final roar, which I think you're missing. And I think the only way really to get a flow for that is during these steps. The back legs don't really do much. I think during these steps you need to start stepping around. So there's little steps at the front, but the back legs are adjusting behind it so that we get a pivot of the back. So my chair is doing it right now, where the back comes around so that we end up more side on, right? So we can do a roar where we're going from screen right to screen left. Because right now you're just kind of coming towards camera. There's not too much screen space that's being used. Whereas if you can get around more with your mechanics to step around, so you're going around this way with your steps where the hip, you do little adjustments with the weight in the front to compensate as the back is coming around. But by having that back come around, then we're again a more side on. Side on is what we want most of the time. The more side on something is, the more clear its silhouette's going to be oftentimes. So we're trying to cheat to get things as, well, not even cheat, we're just trying to force the clearest possible pose. And then the energy is going to feel way better here because we get that clearer, raw energy where we see the right to the left of the screen space being used for the raw. And we also, again, your neck is blocked in your current pose, right? If we go more side on, we'll be able to see that flow of that neck. We'll be able to see it go into the tail all the way through whatever the pose is, right? You can just view it as like one continuous flowing form, right? Whereas right now we're kind of missing that because we're too front on, right? So that's the kind of global notes, right? Get those big heavy steps in and try and figure out the mechanics to get the body around. Having cheating the egg over, maybe even more than what I've got, will really help with trying to get you more side on. Maybe not too far over. Actually, it's fine. You can step over the egg. You're protecting the egg by stepping over it. So even if the egg was further over, even if the egg was over here and you were sniffing it, it would still be, you know, you wouldn't step, as long as you didn't step on it and you like went in front of it, I think you're fine. But I think those things will help problem solve kind of the readability of the ending, which I think is the weakest part of the piece as a whole. This stuff is more polishy because I think it's working overall. That first half is when we come back to it, figuring out this section is still the weakest section. So this is why I'm giving kind of more broad global notes, because I think if you can hit these, then we can go into a bit more detail and polish like we've done with the flappy bits on here, right? Awesome, man. So yeah, give it a go. Keep it up. And yeah, best luck with it. Look forward to seeing the progress. Catch you next time. Thanks, man.